Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Grow Daily podcast. I'm your host, Piyush Agarwal, and you are listening to the 9th episode of this brand new podcast series. If you have been listening for a while, then you know that on this show, I break down different aspects of running your business successfully and make sure you do them in a smarter way. You do them in ways that you can grow every single day. Not by doing the same thing over and over again, but doing them in a way that doesn't ever stall your growth. And on this episode, we are going to continue that journey a little further. Before I proceed with that, I have one small request for all of you. Please share this podcast series with all your friends and people that you think will benefit from what we are talking about. A little push from all of you would go a long way. So let's get started with today's episode. Just like in the last two episodes, we were talking about social media, we are going to continue that journey a little more. Today, we will deep dive further on content creation for social media. And I know what you're thinking, that is such a pain, right? You have to deal with it almost every other day, and every time you have to rack your brains to figure out what content should you be posting to make your audience go bonkers. I know that because I deal with the same thing every single day. While working with my clients and while creating episodes for this very podcast, I have to make sure that I'm coming up with content that all of you would love. But does it always need to be that difficult? Well, maybe not. So today's episode is really special. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about 5 different ways that will help you increase your traffic, engage with your audiences without creating a single content from scratch. Yes, you heard it right. You don't need to produce new content to keep your audiences engaged. There are other ways you can still generate content without going through all the pain. And this episode is all about those magical ways. Sounds exciting? I hope it does, because I'm all excited here to be able to share all of these methods with you. Here goes. So the first method is about making sure that you are making the most of your evergreen content. What is an evergreen content? Well, it's kind of a timeless content that you created at some point of time but still holds stand. Still is interesting, still holds a lot of value for your audiences. If you go through your blog or just browse through your social media pages, you will find a lot of content that still holds its ground, that still is very valuable. Now think of all the people who started following you recently or in the last few months. They may not have really seen that old post of yours which spoke about home remedies to get rid of those dark circles. I know I need one. Now content like that is evergreen, is something that doesn't really change over time and can be reshared, can be read by more people. So what I would recommend is go back to your blog, go back to your social media pages and dig up those content that still is very valuable for your audiences. Make sure you go back by at least 3 months when you are looking for the content, because you wouldn't want to share something that you shared just yesterday. So make sure you find all of those content, get an Excel sheet up, list all of them down, and you will find out how many of those evergreen content is available to share with your audiences. Now, you can very well go ahead and share it just the way you did it last time. However, I recommend to do it differently. I would say repurpose that content. Repurpose it in a way that it works across different mediums so that it also seems like a different content, a different approach. Maybe you can convert the content into images. Just go to Canva and take the tips down and just make them into shareable images. Or take the content and create a brand new video out of it. A video where you just take the content and break it down into different steps over a video which explains it even better. If you don't want to go through any of this, you can just create a small image that introduces the idea, that introduces the concept, and share it along with the same link where the original content was posted. This is just a way to make sure that your old content never really gets old. In case you do find a content or do find a post that does have some information which has gone old, just make sure that you update the content before going out. This may seem a little more work, however, it is for good, because then you can just go out and say, hey, this content has been updated. Have you checked out the updated version or not? Which just makes it even better. So that was the first way. You must be thinking, was that just one? Well, yes, You can obviously repurpose your evergreen content in multiple ways, but the idea is to use content that you had already created in the past and just make sure that you're sharing it again in ways that your audience can feel more engaged and find it more helpful. Moving on to the second method. The second method is where we basically have our audiences generate content for us. Now, this is something that is really interesting and exceptionally engaging. You can run polls. You can go out there and ask questions to your audiences. Today, social media platforms provide so many different tools that will help you engage with your audiences. Now, in doing this, you don't really have to come up with the content from scratch. You just need to rely on your audiences and make sure you're asking questions that are helpful for them, that they would find interesting. So, head to Instagram stories and ask a question, or head to Facebook and start a poll. These are just small ways for you to start engaging with your audiences without really creating any brand new content. Even better, if you can run a contest, go ahead and do that. Contests get people really excited and they are ready to go out of their way to engage with you as the brand and with their friends. It does require a little more work, so I would let you be the judge if this is the right way to go ahead for your brand. But the idea is to have your users generate content for you. So ask questions, go for polls, have your users share images with you. Like I saw this furniture brand ask their users to share a picture of their workstation. A lot of people responded to that, even when it wasn't a contest. It was just a mere ask from a brand that they love. They went ahead and shared pictures of their workstations, and all the brand did was reshare the best ones of the lot, making themselves and their users even happier. Moving on, the third method that I have for all of you to generate content without really creating anything from scratch is to monitor social mentions. Yes, go out there on your Twitter, on your Instagram accounts and look out how many people have tagged you. How many people have referred or reshared something that you shared on your post. Especially if they have mentioned you in any of their tweets or any of their Instagram posts, go ahead and see if you can reshare them or retweet them. That's a great way of building a strong bond with your users. You not only go ahead and share useful content that your users are generating, but at the same time, you are making sure that their work is getting recognized. So more and more people would want to share more content tagging you along, increasing your social media equity, at the same time improving your brand image, and obviously making your brand way more personal. The next method is slightly different from all the ones we have heard so far. Well, it does require a little more work. However, the content that gets shared is completely original and it still doesn't require you to be the source of the content. I am referring to having guests go ahead and create this content for you. Now, this can be done in multiple ways. You can go ahead and have a guest blogger come and write content for you on your blog. They obviously get a link back and recognition from your audiences while you get the content that your audiences will definitely find helpful. There are various other things that you need to keep in mind when opting for guest bloggers. However, I'll keep that for a second episode. There are other ways you can get guests involved as well for generating content. One of them would be interviews. You can do video, audio, or even written interviews with people who are doing great, connected to your field of work, connected to your field of your business, and generate content that your audiences would love. So go ahead and find experts in your field and reach out to them to see if you can generate content that your audiences would love with their help. Now, with that, we are 4 down and 1 more to go. The last one is simpler but can be effective. It really would depend on brand to brand on whether this particular type of content would be helpful for your audiences or not. But you would be the right one to make that call. So here it is. I will share the method and you take a call on whether it is something you would like to jump into or not. This is more around sharing content that is connected to a ongoing trend or some news that your audiences would find helpful. For example, the travel company that I work with recently shared an update from one of the local airports which issued a notice that they will be shut down for the next few weeks during particular hours, which will lead to intermittent delays in flight. Now, this was an important information, and the brand wanted to make sure that its users are aware of it. So they took that content and went ahead and reshared it. Similarly, if there are news events, if there are articles going around, if there are things that you feel you need to stand along with and your audiences would also like to be aware of that, go ahead and share them. These can also be shared with the help of memes which are readily available on various Giphy like sites. You can also use different GIF images. You can use popular video clips to make a point that you have. So go ahead and pick content based on your social feed and what your audiences are already enjoying. Pick content that also reflects what your brand thinks and what your branding means. So it can be a little tricky on how and what you share, but make sure whatever you share is relevant to both you as the brand and your audiences. So those are the 5 amazing ways that you can use to share content with your followers, your audience, without really having to work your ass off to create that content from scratch. I hope you found them interesting. I hope you found them actionable enough that just after this episode, you will go back and actually put them to use. Because if you follow these methods, it's very easy for you to fill up your social media calendar. I hope you're not hearing that for the first time. We did speak about it briefly in the 6th episode where we defined your social media strategy. So if you haven't heard that episode yet, I would recommend you to go back and hear that. With that, we have reached the end of this episode. Like I mentioned initially, please share these tips and this episode with your friends who would find it helpful and help me reach more people. And more importantly, I hope you have subscribed to this channel. I am sharing new episodes every single day. Most of these episodes are not more than 14 to 15 minutes long, so they are quick here with actionable insights. So subscribe today to make sure that you are the first one to find out whenever I publish a new episode. Do leave a review on iTunes or any other podcast app you're using to listen to this episode, because your reviews will help me understand if these episodes are working for you, if my content needs tweaking, or if there's anything else that I should be aware of. Also, the reviews are a great booster to help me keep going. So with that, I would say goodbye. This was Piyush Agarwal, and you have been listening to the Grow Daily podcast.